Welcome to our podcasts, Wise Black Nanas, Life Coaching Between the Dash. Hey, what do you do when it feels like life has thrown you a few too many challenges, knocked you down, in the bed, hard to talk about even with your best friend challenges, and it feels like the challenges are winning? Wouldn't it be nice to hear from your Nana? Or a stand-in Wise Black Nana? Well, they are Wise Black Nanas, Sharla Walker, PhD, and Joanne Early, MS, two mature women with over 70 plus years of combined coaching and mentoring, professional human resources, and business experience. The wonderful news is, these Wise Black Nanas are still living and learning about this amazing life, about resilience and grit, gratitude and appreciation, and the extraordinary power of love and friendships, being positive and supportive, and learning from others. Welcome to Wise Black Nanas. Let's listen in.
Hello, and welcome to our podcast. I am Dr. Sharla Walker, one of the divas of Wise Black Nanas podcast. We share some of our thoughts and experiences related to claiming our self-worth and then adding attacks during our last podcast. So in this episode, we will be talking about well-being and giving you some definition and some examples on how to create that. Joanne?
Yeah, welcome back. I'm Joanne Early, the other half of Wise Black Nanas, and we're talking about our lived experience, our views, and sharing with you some things that we've seen, felt, and experienced in our own lives, our work, and our coaching work especially. So yeah, on this podcast, we're going to be talking about just how are we doing, looking at well-being. Because, gosh, there's just so much going on in our everyday lives, our communities. We've been through a lot over the last few years. Lots going on that's changed our workplaces, the world itself. So, again, we just thought it might be a good time to not talk at, but to look at and talk about well-being. In other words, just what is our overall level of contentment?
Thanks, Joanne. What we decided to do is that we would kind of like, Joe and I to talk to can, like put our heads together. And, we thought of some questions that we could throw out to the audience to get you thinking about well-being and how well-being impacts your life. And do you recognize whether or not you have well-being in your life? So here are just a few of the questions. And really, how are you doing with well-being? Okay. Is it time to do a self-check? And that really is pre and post COVID-19. What are you doing? Have you changed anything? Are you still doing the same thing that is getting the same results? So it's kind of like work a little bit. Okay. So where are you as far as post-COVID, and have you made any changes in your work life or your personal life as far as how you go about your day or how you create well-being?
Yeah, let's take a look at answering some of those questions because as we said, everywhere we look, it seems like there's bad news every single day. And while we might be post-COVID, we've still got so much going on in the world. We got all these wars, the political turmoil with the election coming up. And gee, with so much misinformation out there, so much talk and just evidence of inequities and disparities just everywhere. It just seems like the good deeds sometimes have a smaller and smaller voice, that the good news rarely gets reported as much. And we think all of that affects our well-being and our wellness. So we want to just talk a little bit to help us um, get a little clear focus on, what are we really talking about in this episode? Well, the name of our program is Well-Being and How Are We Doing? But we recognize that sometimes we get well-being and wellness mixed up because, they sound alike. They sometimes are used interchangeably, but we think there is a difference, and there's some different meanings or definitions that can be applied. We always try to give you a little definition or at least kind of set the foundation for what we're talking about. So when we think about wellness, people often think about physical health, nutrition, exercise, weight management, but it's a lot more. It's more of a um, holistic kind of integration of all that physical, mental, spiritual stuff. It's kind of the fuel for our bodies. It engages the mind and certainly nurtures our spirit. So we think about a big overall, um, more of a physical picture when we think about wellness. When we think about well-being, it's more of a intrinsic value. It's more of a state of contentment or being healthy and happy and, feeling supported. In other words, it's more of an overall good quality of life. So if you can think about well-being as more of a quality of life thing, and you think about wellness as more physical, that is a real easy way. Well, maybe not easy, but that's a way to help distinguish and differentiate between the two. But in this program, we're going to be focusing pretty much on talking about well-being.
Thanks, Joanne. Well-being is a broad topic, and we can probably think of a number of different categories that it includes. So we're, in this program, we're not going to try to name every single one. There's probably a new one we would add every day. Just, kind of focus on four today. We have emotional well-being, which is really essential, physical well-being, social well-being, and this one stands out for me because as a mature single person, woman, uh, post-COVID is not really a lot for you to do to get back into the dating game or socialize, and people are still not really coming together like they did before,
Right.
unless special group. So some of us mature folks who still look good, don't look our age, we're struggling, you know, and some of us have experienced the websites plenty of fish, plenty of fish. Uh, will not fish in that pond anymore. But anyway,
Okay, I'm not sure I've ever heard that what do they call it?
website, plenty of fish. Oh,
Right. Okay.
all right. And you don't want to. Danger,
Okay.
danger. Okay. Um, workplace and vocational well-being. We spend a lot of our time in our workplace or doing the job or working a passion that we love. It seems of late that Joe and I, our passion has become Wiley's Black Nanos, and we love it. So we want to make sure our well-being stays intact. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So
So,
just thinking about those very four broad categories, it really does encompass every aspect of our life because I don't care whether you are conscious of it or thinking about it or aware of it or whatever. You think about, your emotional place. We're in and out. different aspects of that or different variations of that. Physically, if you ain't got your physical being together, you're off. You're not able to do anything really. And having friends and a network of interactions and involvements, that's what keeps us socially there. And so we just think about those those things, and then we start to think about what happens when something isn't together, or when we're dealing with something like COVID-19, where everybody was off. Everything as we knew it wasn't the same. We weren't even talking about well-being, during that particular point. But every COVID-19 was impacting every aspect of our lives. And when we look back at COVID-19, it's hard to, sometimes it's kind of hard to even think about it now, but we actually saw, witnessed, and lived through a period of time that was unlike any other time that we had. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, it just was again, a period that's still very fresh in all of our minds. We don't want to think about it, but we need to, because there were so many things that came out of that we just had not experienced before. We broke down as as a people, as a families, as friends, work networks. Our own mental health status was diminished because there was just so many unknowns, so many things that happened that we had not experienced or lived through before. But a lot of people lost a lot of their physicality because they just weren't able to be active. We were in the house or shut up in our apartments. For long, long periods of time because we were scared to go out, scared to interact, scared to go get some even health care that we needed or interactions that we needed because we didn't know who was ill, or we were afraid that, we would become ill and become sick. So a lot of relationships dissolved. Some family situations broke up or just broke down because people went into themselves, not only just into their homes, but they also went just into themselves. And just many things happened, and we experienced many things that a lot of us just had not seen or experienced to the levels that we experienced. So, Dr.
Yeah.
Charlotte, some more things that you can think of?
Oh, yeah. I think being on the front lines in human resources and
Oh, yeah, you were
it
working during that time. Yeah.
working through that time and being considered the only way that you could walk around Oakland or whatever, what my location was being considered an essential employee and having a letter on me. So in case I got stopped, that,
Wow.
um, it was weird. It was, it impacted my psyche. It's like I thought essential employee was a good thing, but during COVID, not such,
Yeah,
not such a good thing. So,
right.
mhm. And it's only like a couple of us that were really considered essential. Um, some other impacts, of well-being, uh, increase in drinking. Maybe people had maybe a half a glass of wine or a cup of wine, went to a bottle of wine a night,
Hmm.
just and that could be part of just depression of being stuck in one place and not seeing a way out.
Hmm.
There was substance misuse, and I'll add upgrade to that. And what I mean by that is that perhaps someone who had uh, ate edibles, moved up to crystal milk, or decided to get something a little bit harder to kind of take away whatever that feeling was.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm, depression, deeper, darker, blacker depression. Um, uh, removal from society, even your family, spouse, whatever. That happened. Um, there was low tolerance of many people, quick to get angry. There was an increase in SA and DV violence, uh, which was a way of how some folks got rid of their frustrations or um, dealing with their depression. Um, Self-defaming language and,
Mhm.
saying things like, I'm not good enough and I should die or I should be
Mhm.
dead. Nobody
Mhm.
cares.
Wow.
And um, mm, yeah. And one of the key things is we have a hard time forgiving others during this time because we're hurting. And so we want everybody else to hurt. I mean,
Mhm.
not all the time, but that just from little of the psychology stuff that I know. As they say, hurt people hurt people. Um, there is such a stronger, more need for professional help um, uh, from all around. And I think even our professionals needed professional help because they
Yeah.
were overwhelmed
Right.
by the volume of folks that needed their help.
Right.
And do you have enough time for them? Do you have that 30 minutes for 100 patients?
Right.
Probably not.
Yeah, we
Um,
saw those reports. We saw those reports on TV of just how many medical professionals that were just overwhelmed. And I have friends and colleagues that talked about, they were concerned about their own health and taking something home to their families,
their families, yeah.
with working with so many sick people. So, oh my goodness, yeah, yeah. Do you know what? I think one of the good things that came out of this is that there was a heightened awareness of mental health, the need for mental health care, and how it had been overlooked in the past. And COVID just brought out so many things. But I do think one of the positive things that's remained is, the open
Mhm.
acknowledgement that there is a great, great need for mental health care in this country, and there are some efforts underway, to ensure that the resources are there for people to get the help that
Mhm.
that they need.
I think the research also showed that there weren't enough mental health professionals to support what we needed.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of like the nursing shortage, or, where do we go to get those people? How do we train them? Do we train them here or do we bring them here? Just all these questions came up. At least I know Governor Newsom, because that was a part of a program that where I worked of, getting MAs and nurses and healthcare professionals
Hmm.
into California from other countries as soon as
Wow.
possible. But so that was another impact. It's like we didn't have enough people. Like you said, if you have 100 people and you got 24 hours, how many half hours are that you can allot? Not many, because you're not
Hmm.
going to work 24
Hmm.
hours.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, gosh, when we just think back, like I said, it wasn't that long ago. It really wasn't. I mean, I know it,
Mm-mm.
it almost feels like it was a long, long time ago, but it really was really only a few months ago. My head just spins with all the stuff that was going on, all the changes we've seen, all of the just just different experiences, things that we went through. Now that we can look back.
Mhm.
I think about all the crazy advice we got, about bleach and Lysol and just
Yeah,
so,
that was the jokester, but the jokester didn't drink it either. He just said, do it.
oh, yeah, yeah. All those things that we were experiencing during that time, I think just put the kibosh or put the, just had everybody's talk about well-being. Just everybody was just such at a low point. It was just really, really hard, to find positive stories and experience things to keep us uplifted and to
Mhm.
try to keep our mental health, at a positive level. Just the unknowns. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, all the finger pointing and the negative stuff.
yeah,
I just am so thankful every day that we got a different administration in power. We were able to get a vaccine and supplies started coming in because I mean, heck, there was that time when we couldn't find masks, we couldn't find
right.
paper
Gloves,
towels, and people were
gloves.
fighting
Yeah,
over Lysol containers and wipes and stuff, in parking lots. It was just a crazy, crazy time. And I think it also let us know that, there's there's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked on. But
yeah,
I go back to being very grateful that the lack of adequate mental health resources, came out of that. And thank goodness for Zoom and other platforms similar to Zoom that allowed schools to at least continue to some degree. Not have been what we wanted, but at least the students were able to continue their studies. And people were able to connect. Work was able to go on. So there were some good things
yeah. I mean,
that
the
came out
fact
of
that,
that.
I think the fact that the organization where I worked at, we had the year before kind of made it really possible for everyone to work remotely.
Hmm.
Hadn't really publicized it, really helped in not having to lay off anybody
Hmm.
or anything like that. So that was really really helpful because a lot of organizations could not do that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Yep.
um,
Yep. There was definitely some good things.
yeah.
And there were a lot of losses. Gosh, I lost a long-term relationship because of the need to relocate back to California, to just help out my granddaughter with her family. They were trying to balance two hectic work schedules, working at home and caring for, a 3-year-old whose daycare had been closed because of COVID. And they, like millions of parents all over the world, had to balance how do I do work and how do I do, taking care of my child and my family. So I agreed to, come out and help them during that terrible COVID time. And a really great guy that I cared a lot for, we just couldn't, seem to make it work. So I'm not sure if COVID was, all the reasons for that relationship ending. But it was a loss for me, and it created a certain sadness and a certain level of regret, for me. So I can't know if I can blame the whole thing on COVID, but it certainly helped put a nail,
Mhm.
in a situation that, was a pretty good one pre-COVID. So that's kind of my one of my COVID stories.
Yeah, I think I consider myself a pretty creative person. And I think uh, COVID and working to make sure employees were safe and creating well-being and higher whatever uh, really really expanded my knowledge and required me to keep on learning and
Hmm.
and all the while not trying to spend a whole bunch of money because of course with every disaster these companies open up and they come in they tell you what they can do to help
Yes.
you with this and then they charge you 50 or $100,000 and I would say I could do that and you don't have to pay $100,000.
Hmm.
I could do the chart. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right, right.
So, but
We all learned a way. I mean, it showed a lot of creativity, in a lot of areas. But I think we've come out of it, and certainly, I realize there are a lot of people that are still, having some health issues, and it's still around. It's just that
Yeah.
thank goodness we have a vaccine that is available and that people can take, to help us not get back into that same situation that we were in just, a winter or so ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've been talking about, some things that occur and happen as a result of um, COVID affected low well-being. What do you think are some things we can do, every one of us can do to just boost our overall feeling of quality of life and contentment? What do you think are some things that we
Well,
can do?
you know, we've done some research and the list could go from 50 things to 5 things. And so what we've decided to do is just to share just, a list of 5 things that are just just thinking about them is doing. Just being aware of them is doing.
Hmm.
So, what I like to do now is just kind of take you down that path and just share with you 5 things that can help you boost your well-being in your professional or personal lives.
Hmm.
Before I get to that, I have to tell you my little pre-retirement. I can just say that. I'll say that
Yes, you can.
pre-retirement um, well-being ritual that I would do in the office in the morning. Pretty much everyone that knows me knows I'm an early bird, which means that 4:30 a.m. my eyes are open. I'm woke. I'm restless. I'm ready to get up. Now 3 p.m. in the
4:30.
afternoon.
Ooh.
Now 3 p.m. in the afternoon, I'm ready to crash and burn. But I used to tell my staff, whatever you need to get to me before 12 because I don't make decisions after 12. But anyway, what I would do maybe 2, 3, 4 times a week, depending on what was going on, I would make sure that I go to office about an hour, 15 hour, half hour, hour and a half earlier when no one was there. So normal hours were 9 to whatever when people came in, but I like to go in early because I like the peace. I like the quiet. Um, just don't like talking to business early in the morning. That's just me. So what I would do is I would, get my Starbucks or my what the Pete's, my banana nut bread, and come in the office about an hour and a half earlier. Um, Come on in, turn the alarm off, go in my office, close the door, don't turn the lights on, um, raise the blinds up. I had an office that didn't have glass windows, which made it even better because I requested that as an HR office. I didn't want people to be passing by to see who was in the office so they could run tell that. But anyway, I would just kind of like create light my little candle. And then I'd sit down and I just kind of like take a couple deep breaths and just kind of like, okay, this is the beginning of the day. I did no work. I did no emails. I did no phone calls. I did none of that stuff. So what I would do is I did um, have on my links some comics. So I'd go and go through several comic pages of New York Times, East Bay Times, and some other, just, looking at that. Then I'd go through the horoscopes and all of those and find some more. And I always have had 3, 4 different type of motivational little um, quote signs all the way, around the office by date. So I'd go and tear it off the date, read, walk around. Then I'd come back and then I just sit. I just sit and
Mhm.
just like really try to really focus on having a good day
Mhm.
and how to create, like continue to create that all day long. Now, sometimes that was not possible due to work, but I think the effort in the morning for me helped me throughout the day to say, okay, it's not that bad.
Hmm.
It's not that bad.
Help to start
Um,
you off in a
yeah, in a calm.
calm
And it
way.
made a difference in my day. I could tell when I did it and when I didn't,
Yes.
my mood. So that was important to me. And, by 7:15 or 8:30, whatever, I was done, door open, doing my doing my work. But that was important to me to create that kind of well-being for me pre-retirement. Um, Prior to that, I probably would have not thought about it, but I was creating a path for retirement of what I was going to do. So anyway, so that was one of the things. So one of the key um, ways to boost your well-being is connection. And we've been talking about COVID-19 and how we were separated and how we were disconnected, et cetera. But connection is really important to our soul and to our well-being to be able to talk with someone, reach out at any time. Uh, but it takes effort. And so, you have to be conscious of that. And it has to be intentional. It just can't be, I'm going to reach out to this person today. Some people use Facebook, some people will join online um, book clubs, other ways to connect.
Hmm.
And that's fine. Whatever connection works for you
Hmm.
is a good connection. But
Hmm.
just do it. Just do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's a activity. Activity is really important. Getting up and, moving around, getting up out of the bed and, uh, going to the gym. And that doesn't need, you have to join a gym. Um, I
Walking,
noticed, I
walking or
noticed last week,
stretching or
yeah, stretching or, I get AARP, I get all kind of free videos all the time. Have I looked at one? Any? No, but, they're free. And so, and then, I happen to step out on my patio and go like, oh, I got a big yard. I could really walk around the yard about 20 times and get that mile in. So I was like, maybe I'll start doing that. Maybe. Okay.
Mhm.
But any kind of activities, it could be sewing, it could be just, you know, going to bingo, or just something to have life moving around you and not just at a standstill.
Mhm. Yes.
The other
Yeah.
is take notice. Take notice of what you're doing. What are your habits? Are you doing the same thing? I know someone who stayed in the bed 3 to 4 days and finally took notice that they all they did was get up out of bed, go to the bathroom, get back in bed, and they weren't sick. They weren't anything they took notice. They just was having some depression of not feeling worthy. And this often happens to retired folks who are, maybe have been really, really, really high performers in their
Mhm.
job. And then you get retired and there's nobody to say, good job, or here's this bonus or whatever, many, many years ago, I worked with a lady who had 38 years of perfect attendance. So at that time, you would get a little charm for a brace. So
Wow.
that was good times. We used to get good stuff at the telecommunications company. But the thing is, she came to work sick and made everybody else sick. So she came to work and got her to get her
Her,
charge.
her 38 years and everybody else was
But everybody else got sick. So, but just take notice of your patterns that you're doing. And even if it's just getting out of bed, taking a shower, and putting on some clothes,
you'll feel
sweats,
better. You
whatever.
better. Yeah.
I keep telling Joanne I'm gonna surprise her and have eyebrows one of these one of our sessions. That's a going joke for us. So just taking notice of that and just maybe putting some earrings on or something. Or as an ex-mother-in-law told me, she used lip paint, which was lipstick. So just taking notice of what you're doing and making some changes. The next step is number 4, which is keep learning.
Yeah.
Uh, I, I guess because I love to read and I love to just always, I can't say I'm nosy, but I'm curious. I like to know what's going on to a certain extent. I just keep learning. Learning is just something that I just love to do. So you never know, I used to make all my clothes and just watching a piece of cloth turn into a dress, or pants or a suit for my kids. That 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 was learning. It's like, oh, I can do that now.
And then too, what a sense of accomplishment. Uh,
Yeah, because I'm hard headed. I once I start, I have to finish it. I wasn't the kind of sewer who would do a few things and put it away. I did start from finish, no matter how long it took me that day. And that's just what it was. But to keep learning, I do wish that I still knew how to embroider. My grandmother taught me how to embroider. And I used to think that was such a beautiful skill to have, how she would get those different colors on the tablecloth and, on the pillowcase.
right,
And
right.
I can't even thread a needle. I can't even thread a needle now. But it was just, and then she put it in starch and they'd be so stiff. And so I learned, but I've forgotten how to the art of it right now. But so I keep learning. I have some challenges with my sight right now, so my love of reading is challenging. So I got to figure out how to get around that. I think that the last one is so important, and that's to give. Give of ourselves with no expectation of whether or not we're going to get something back. I think
Mhm.
that's the best way to set up well-being, because it's unintentional.
Right,
It's all, and it's purposeful.
right.
And I love giving. I love giving to those who don't expect it, like volunteering or
Hmm.
sending someone a plant. Um, and, and one of the things that I kind of like to do is when someone has lost someone, I don't send plants or cards right away. I send maybe them a month later, because that's when everybody else has disappeared.
Yeah,
And that's when it means more, because someone is still thinking about them.
yeah. That's a
So that's
beautiful
what I like to do.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So so these are the 5: connection, activity, take notice,
Hmm.
keep learning, give. When that, and volunteerism is in that as well.
Hmm.
Joanne, what do you think about these 5?
Well, you know what? I love it because they are simple things that can be as elevated or they can cost a lot of money, or they could be absolutely of no cost, something you can do. You can decide to what extent you want to do them. I love them. I really do. I think the underpinning or the foundation to all of this is just our being aware of when, maybe we're lacking in self-being. And we know something's off, what did it say, off kilter a little bit. Um, just the awareness of that, and then going beyond the awareness and actually taking some actions can just cultivate, I think, feelings that, we just, they'll bring up feelings for us that we didn't know were there
Mhm.
and available to us through just some very simple actions. When
Mhm.
you talked about, or when we were preparing for this episode, and you talked about those 5 key things to boost your well-being, I remembered back to a volunteer situation that I was involved in a few years ago. Anybody that knows me also knows that I am definitely a reader and I love uh, books. And if it's got anything to do with reading or exploring or learning something through a book, then, I'm your person. But it was about a time when I was also a participant in an organization called Reading Partners, and they provided adult uh, readers to elementary school children to help them with their reading. So this was that. I just remembered it being a pretty low point in my life. I was between jobs trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was having some financial issues because I was caught up in that housing crisis in California, and also dealing with whatever current family crisis, because there's always a family crisis um, going on. But I was a reading partner at this elementary school out in East Oakland. And my little reading partner was a little girl who was a third grader whose family was recent immigrants, where there was no English at all spoken at home. And that alone used to throw me back. So I'm thinking, how the heck can, when there's no English spoken at home? But anyway, no English spoken at home. So what kept me going back to that school twice a week was just the belief that I was making a difference in somebody's life, helping someone read and having just a positive impact on a young person. I didn't even think about it from a standpoint of well-being or anything like that at the particular time. It was just that I really enjoyed working with that little student and helping her read. So after Reader's graduation, I met some of her family members. All of the reading partners came to a little graduation, and the kids would get a little certificate. But anyway, her mother introduced herself, and she had wrote Miss Joanne, that was me, a note, and it was in Spanish and English. And it said how much her daughter talked about me at home, and that the mom took time off from work, and other family members took time off from work to come and meet me and to say thank you.
Mhm.
It was such a precious moment, and
Oh
one
yeah.
one that I, certainly now and have many, many times looked back on to kind of boost my feelings of self-worth and well-being. And it was just an example of how I gave very, very little to somebody that just thought that it was just such a huge, huge thing. And I think about how it made me feel at the time. And I know for sure when I left that little school and waved goodbye at that little girl, um, I was not the same person as when I had come that morning.
Wow. That's
Because
so great.
just having that experience with her and seeing her accomplishment and that she had studied and practiced the things that we had last talked about, it gave me such a good feeling. And I'm certain that it impacted the rest of my day, my approach, my conversation, and just my interaction with others. And I just
Mhm.
know that that little girl is still out there. She's not in the third grade anymore, but I know she's out there and she is still reading somewhere. because of the
Wow.
experience that we had. I just know in my heart that she is. But that
Yeah.
was, that's something that came up for me when I first heard you talk about the importance of giving back and volunteering.
That's impact. That's like, remember I think I mentioned to you my first grade teacher, Miss Johnson. What,
Hmm.
50 years later, I don't know how long ago it was, but I remember her
You
like,
still remember Miss Johnson?
yeah, like she's standing in front of me right now. She has such a positive impact on me. So, yeah, I get it.
Right. So that's our episode 5, well-being. We asked the question, just how are we doing? And we hope that you've gained even one insight or heard something that inspires you to learn more and to do something. In other words, just to take some action.
Right. The
And
key word,
yeah,
taking
action, taking action.
taking action with explanation points behind it. Taking
Right,
action.
right, right. Now we know this podcast is not for everybody, and it is for a lot of somebodies. So, as we usually do, we like to leave you with a little quote or a little something that you can take away from this episode or take with you. And this time it's a quote from Napoleon Hill. And that quote is, one must marry one's feelings to one's beliefs and ideas. That is probably the only way to achieve a measure of harmony in one's life. So
Right.
that's it for our episode 5. We want to thank you and ask you to take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Please keep listening to Wise Black Nanas,
All
and please
right.
leave a comment on our Facebook page.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Wise Black Nanas. New programs of Wise Black Nanas are on the 1st and 15th of each month. Listen in as you learn more about Wise Black Nanas, Dr. Sharla Walker and Joanne Early. They are everyday nanas. They are not famous, not celebrities or rich, well, rich in life and its experiences. We want you to come back. Tell your friends. So, look for Wise Black Nanas podcast wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Learn more about them and the coaching services they offer at www.wiseblacknanas.com.